Good morning and welcome to the AlabamaWorks webinar series, a monthly webinar designed to provide information and speakers related to the workforce in Alabama. Past webinars are available on the AlabamaWorks website at alabamaworks.com. And now your host, Christy Knowles, Vice Chair of the Alabama Workforce Council.
All right, well, good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to our January 2023 Alabama Workforce Council monthly webinar. We're going to have several speakers today, so it'll be somewhat of a rapid pace as we go through and learn all the information that our four speakers have to share with us today. First up, you're going to hear from Mr. Wyatt Smith. He is founder and CEO of Upsmith, and he's going to share details about how his company is addressing the skilled worker shortage. Then you're going to hear from Nick Moore. Nick is going to provide an update on the non-degree credential employer preference survey. And then Mr. David Walters, Executive Director of Adult Education, Special Projects and System Initiatives with the Alabama Community College System. And he's going to provide an update on adult education. And then last but certainly not least, Dr. Barbara Cooper, Secretary of Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education. And she's going to share with us a first-class pre-K update. So with that, Mr. Smith, I'll ask you to get started.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. I'm Wyatt Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Upsmith. Our mission is to combat America's skilled worker shortage and to take on a crisis that's affecting employers across our country. That's the shortage of skilled workforce to be able to take on jobs of the future, grow revenue, and build their businesses. I'm a native of Reform, Alabama, Pickens County. My family's in the cattle business there, and so grew up in ag, but started my career in education as a teacher with the Birmingham City Schools, and really excited for the chance to connect with all of you this morning. I'm going to share my screen and then walk through a very brief presentation about our mission and about how we're working with employers across the country. If there's an opportunity, we'd love the chance to learn more about how we might help you. And so any follow-up questions, my email address is wyatt@upsmith.com. I'll share that at the end of the presentation. So at Upsmith, our mission, again, is to combat this skilled worker shortage facing our nation. We do this with a two-sided marketplace. First, we solve a problem for employers. We help expand workforce supply by connecting them with the people they need to be able to grow revenue. Secondly, we enable human purpose. It's creating high dignity, high pay, ultimately high purpose careers for individuals that are more credential focused about building the right skills that they need to unlock jobs of the future that may not always require degrees. I'll show you a brief video about that mission and how it works. Upsmith's mission is to combat the skilled worker crisis in the U.S. and around the world. We're going to more than triple by 2030 the amount of open positions in this country. It's going to take all sorts of novel solutions to ready talent to take on those roles.
We know that the shortage of labor is it's mind-boggling. So innovative solutions like Upsmith that are this wonderful technology platform that a person can get on and have agency over themselves and their career path. It is cutting edge.
So the beauty of working with Upsmith is that we're able to bring all types of talent from every walk of life into our funnel to the benefit of an employer who needs talent now.
The platform itself is really cool. We are introducing video interviewing, and we're really looking for mindsets and dispositions and character traits that make people good workers, even if they don't have the skills yet. Do you have the mindsets that an employer goes, you know what, I can take a bet on this person. I know I can train them in the literal skill that they need.
The need for workers is great. And what we're seeing here is an innovative program that connects companies with prospective workers. And it's very exciting.
I'm just looking for a career that's going to give me a sense of fulfillment and excitement. Also a career where I feel like I'm an asset to society. I know there's a demand for skilled tradesmen like electricians right now. And I just want to use that to help progress this country forward.
We're starting construction and manufacturing because they're so key to the built environment. Think about the future of our electric grid, reshoring of the American supply chain, manufacturing, semiconductors, and biotechnology. These are opportunities that technicians that we partner with will be able to unlock. Upsmith is committed to that mission. Excellent. Our vision for how we take on this mission is in 4 parts. First, we have a talent platform at upsmith.com that hosts lots of candidates from all walks of life. It's video-based, and you see people's resumes as well as the way that they would talk about pursuing one of these new career opportunities. We validate their competencies through third-party aptitude assessment. It's measuring potential, work ethic, dependability, grittiness, and then overlaying that with skills that are transferable around quantitative reasoning, how they work through mechanical problems. We automate the process of background checks and drug tests, right to work in the US verification to solve those pain points for employers. And then we're offering high purpose, high pay career opportunities from some of the best companies out there. In many cases, and this is the important part, the skills that are needed to take on that role are very discrete and credential based. There are things like OSHA certificates for safety. There are things like EPA licenses for being able to be a registered technician. We connect those individuals with rapid employer-centric upskilling opportunity financed by employers that have a really clear payback associated. An example would be something like a commercial HVAC technician, someone who's going to be going through a maintenance routine for clients in different commercial capabilities across a market. We can qualify in as little as 60 days, someone with an EPA 608 certificate, an OSHA 10 license, things that would then enable them to go and be safe, productive, and capable people in the company. Our clients are seeing in many cases as little as 3-month return on investment and up to 10 times growth in revenue over that cost of bringing someone on board. Why is this an opportunity? It's an opportunity because we have a real crisis in our country on the way in which we're replacing our skilled workforce. In some cases, up to 5 people are leaving the workforce for every 1 entering. This is true in narrow geographies where there's not enough of a backfill around skills that are needed for jobs that cannot be outsourced. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of demand across the nation as employers look to invest in their supply chains. COVID helped teach us that resiliency in supply chains is essential for being able to deliver these services. And we're seeing that growth as you think about projections for these jobs in the decade ahead. Right now, when we look at how people solve this problem, it's not necessarily growing the workforce. It's looking for talent that already exists. And so our insight is we got to tap community-based partnerships. We need to tap digital channels. We need to look for ways in which you bring people out of the military, have a successful transition towards a civilian career. Those are the levers that we pull to be able to create those bases of support for jobs of the future. Our vision is that you can look at someone's backgrounds, their mindsets, their dispositions, how they behave, and use technology to pull out the best of those capabilities. We work with people like Jared Garcia in this picture, who right now doesn't hold a credential, but through the work he's done as a gig worker, as a delivery driver for Walmart, as a person who's been highly reliable in other situations, we can pull out through that data examples that make him a great candidate to bet on. We then have everyone take a series of aptitude assessments. It's a 250 question test that's ultimately getting a sense about their personality fit, how committed they are to an employer, to a new career path, and would they be a really good personality match for that career, whether it be adherence to process, safety culture, being somebody that's open and can build trust quickly. With that profile, we then have a tool that allows for employers to rate candidates on fit. And that allows for a virtual process of being able to net, in many cases, 25 times more candidates than you have positions for any one role. We're seeing that in Memphis right now, in Houston and Dallas. And getting that higher sample size often drives a much more successful placement. I'll show you just a quick demo of how it works. This is an example of the interface that you would see at upsmith.com. This is a candidate in Texas who we're working with.
One thing I just did was build new legs for my computer desk because the original ones broke while I tried to use them as a pivoting point while attempting to move the cumbersome desk by myself. Not the smartest move, I admit, but I was already content with them breaking if they did. They were a little too short, honestly. It was a 28-inch desk. I wanted it to be a 32-inch desk for the legs. So I went to the nearest Home Depot, bought 3 8-foot 2x6 boards and got them cut for 32 inches, which left me with a spare leg, and proceeded to screw and glue them by couples with 3-inch screws and glue. Of course, Home Depot failed to cut them square, which I expected. So I had to hand plane the end grains and resurface the table so the glue would stick to keep them in place while I screwed them in.
So it gives you a sense of what Tyler would say is his response to something he's built with his hands that he's proud of. And Tyler was being assessed for a role in industrial services with a very large employer that has a lot of needs for mechanical reasoning. And so having an example of a transferable problem he had solved as a person who had been an Air Force veteran, who had worked in a number of construction type jobs, it enabled that employer to say, you know what, Tyler is somebody I can bet on for the future. And so he was hired in as little as 60 days, built all the credentials that would have normally taken over a year, maybe two, in a more traditional post-secondary educational track. He now is thriving. He's among the top 10 producers on revenue in the Houston market for his employer. And that's a business of around an $80 million P&L that is really impressive how he's thriving. And we're excited to see where he goes from here. Ultimately, as you go to upsmith.com, you can see more candidates. You can give us some feedback about the ways in which you're trying to solve this challenge. We'd love to learn from you. You can see some things about how we think about delivering value for employers. And again, we're in a building mode. So getting the chance to work with folks from the Alabama Workforce Council and from a lot of different manufacturing, construction, services businesses across the market, we want to be able to grow and help solve this problem at more scale with more time. I'll close on just two case studies. One is a partnership we have in Tennessee with the West Tennessee Associated Builders and Contractors group there. Governor Bill Lee, who you saw in our video, endorsed us as a workforce development partner. We've been very active there at helping create these rapid upskilling camps. We've started with the focus on electricians, and we're expanding out from there. We also have seen really great mastery rate. So 94% of candidates earning mastery scores on national apprentice exams. Normally it would take about a year before they were achieving at that rate. We saw that in as little as 2 months. We also have a very successful case study with a group called American Residential Services, ARS Rescue Router. We're going to pilot in Texas that concluded just a month ago. And in that context, a number of people that, again, in 60 days are holding all the credentials they need for success in their career track. And we're excited to grow across North America with them in the months ahead. So I'll close there. Again, my name is Wyatt Smith. I'm the CEO of Upsmith. Our mission is to take on the skilled worker shortage. We'd love to do so with great companies across Alabama. Please shoot me an email at wyatt@upsmith.com. We'd love to learn more about how you're tackling this problem and ways to partner. Final note of thank you to the council, to Nick Moore and the crew for inviting us to join. Very excited about all the things that are happening across the state of Alabama around workforce development, and would be honored to join forces. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, listen, thank you, Wyatt. I love the presentation. Specifically, I love how you align values. Even though we can sometimes, we work so hard to hire someone and then it doesn't work out because of the misalignment of values and work ethic. So I thought that was great. And did I understand you to say your focus right now is construction and manufacturing?
Home services, commercial services, we're very much focused in that area. Our ambition in the future is to expand into healthcare, into different parts of the logistics value chain. But right now, like a laser, very focused on construction, manufacturing, and services.
Okay, great. Well, I can't wait till you focus on healthcare. All right. Well, Mr. Nick Moore, I'm going to give you the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Let me share my screen. So we've talked quite a bit about non-degree credentials and employer preferences for non-degree credentials in the labor market. And the literature and data available in research is not tremendously robust. And so we decided to take a look at some of our native data in the state of Alabama, just as really to get the conversation started. So I want to caveat this by saying there's a lot more research that needs to be done. And the sample size on some of the surveys we were working with is too low to make too many strong normative conclusions here. But it does give us some insight into the way that employers are thinking about and using non-degree credentials. And so a couple of things that we wanted to understand in these surveys are non-degree credentials earned equitably among Alabamians? How do earnings for those who have earned non-degree credentials compared to those who have not in the same job, and even with the same employer or employers in the same industry? And are employers validating and recognizing non-degree credentials, and for what jobs? So to answer these questions, we did a battery of surveys, and one of these was working with the Center for Regional Economic Competitiveness and Credential Engine to first measure and put some limits on the project by measuring our attainment goal against each of our special populations, and to try to measure progress against the Success Plus post-secondary attainment goal since 2018. So as y'all know, and as we've reported, we know that between 2018 and the present, basically, we've had about 215,000 people earn a credential. And you'll be hearing from me next month with a report on how many people in each of our special populations have earned a credential. And what we've seen across each of our 7 workforce regions is that there is quite a bit of variation, obviously, among population and credential attainment in each of our 7 workforce regions. And that also has a lot to do with the fact that credential attainment and post-secondary attainment are connected to labor force participation and the dynamics of the economy. So we're seeing stronger labor force participation and stronger post-secondary attainment work in tandem. And the reverse is, of course, true as well. So this is just to put the scale in the context of credentials earned and total population in each of our 7 regions. Now, that was just a sort of recap on where we've been thus far. The new information today is to answer questions 2 and 3. We partner with New South Research, and then we did our own internal survey of Alabama employers called the Employer Non-Degree Credential Survey. And the New South survey was conducted early in this year between February and March. And the employer non-degree survey that we conducted was between March and May of 2022. And there was quite a bit of different size and geography and sample size. And as I mentioned, we're going to conduct some other surveys working with some of the trade associations that have expressed interest to try to target a larger sample size. Now, what we did see as some initial insights is that, and something that's interesting, is more than 2/3 of employers are using non-degree credentials as a signal of competence to validate skills, and 60% are actually paying for credentials for their employees. And about 1/3 of employers in both surveys responded that they prefer to hire candidates who possess non-degree credentials over those who do not. But we're going to have to dig a little bit deeper to understand this really interesting paradox that employers are using non-degree credentials to validate competence, but they do not prefer to hire candidates with non-degree credentials over those who do not possess them right now. And so there's further conversations that we'll have about some ideas around what is some of the churn and the uncertainty in what some would call this wild west of non-degree credentials. And some of these things we're working to help ease. So for example, non-degree credential quality and transparency, the idea of employers and job seekers having better understanding of what are the competencies, discrete skills that I'm going to master after having earned this credential, what's the labor market premium tied to pretty robust data, and how does this credential stack, and then how can it be modularized against other longer term degree programs. So I think that if we can begin answering some of those questions and showing how non-degree credentials are not part of a new way of tracking people into a different system of post-secondary learning, but it's a way of growing the base and opening up and new modalities of learning for people who maybe right now are not being as well served by our traditional post-secondary systems in regard to access. And so this is a way also for 2- and 4-year universities and other partners to have access to new students. And I think in the post-COVID-19 world, as we've done some of our other surveys with Signal have shown, people are not turning their back on post-secondary learning. In fact, it's the opposite. It's that people need to have post-secondary learning delivered in a way that takes advantage of competencies, of skills-based hiring, and also scaffolds on the kind of supportive services that people need to be able to enter into the labor force when they're facing sometimes some steep barriers. So just close it out with, and we'll share this deck out with anybody that wants to look a little bit more in the data, and we've got more on the methodology and longer form for those that are interested. But this just shows a little bit of the comparison between the New South data and the employer non-degree credential survey data. And most of the results were pretty stable across the two surveys. And so that does show that even though the sample sizes were different, some of these preferences tend to be pretty similar, except, for example, the percent of employers who are providing raises for earning non-degree credentials and the percent of employers who advance credential earners. But most of these other ones were within about 7 to 10% window. So appreciate the opportunity to join you today, Ms. Knowles, and look forward to following up with anybody that has questions about the survey or these data.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Nick Moore. We appreciate that information. That is an interesting paradox, how some of those questions have gotten answered. So I know you and your team will figure that out so we can better understand and move forward. Listen, we are going to have a small change in our schedule today. Mr. David Walters is unable to join us. And so hopefully we can get him back on another monthly webinar. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and move to Dr. Barbara Cooper. So Secretary Cooper, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Let me get my presentation up. Okay. Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to share about our work at the Department of Early Childhood. The COVID-19 pandemic put a spotlight on the challenge that has long existed in the early childhood care and education community. We experienced a lack of qualified teachers to support the growth and development of the nation's youngest learners across the United States, as well as here in Alabama. It is now very clear to the masses that nothing works effectively or efficiently without the early childhood care and education community. And the work we do in early childhood ultimately prepares today's children for tomorrow's workforce. The Early Childhood Education Works Alabama is actually our departmental initiative that focuses on the challenges facing the early childhood education labor force, which includes subject area and geographic teacher shortages, lack of clearly identified pathways for continued education, lack of access to higher education, especially for vulnerable populations who have limited resources and income, those who experience transportation challenges and low wages. With a strong focus on state, agency, and local program partnerships, the Early Childhood Education Works Alabama initiative will allow the state to grow its own early childhood educators by recruiting individuals into the early childhood education field, ensuring supports are available for candidates to obtain the necessary educator credentials that Nick just talked about, develop the pathways of support that lead to higher compensation, and ensuring advanced professional development is available to equip our educators with the knowledge necessary to work with challenges currently faced in today's early learning classrooms. Focusing on our youngest citizens is the ultimate plan to ensure a stronger economy for the future. We are doing this work through the programs we offer at the department. Like young children, I like to begin every conversation with the infamous why. All great organizations do two things well. They understand their why, and they have the right people on the bus to do the work. The department does this work because we know equitable early learning experiences are invaluable. We are committed to supporting and delivering cohesive, equitable systems of high-quality care and education. We know that this requires collective impact strategies like the ones that have already been discussed here this morning. The Department Office of School Readiness is recognized across the state and nation as a leader in providing high-quality pre-K. I am frequently asked if Alabama's first-class pre-K program is truly #1 in the nation, and my answer is always a resounding yes. We have consistently reached all near benchmarks for 16 consecutive years, and our rigorous evaluation of the first-class pre-K program continues to show that children who participate are ready for kindergarten. They are more likely to be proficient in reading and math. They are less likely to be retained in a grade or chronically absent, and less likely to need special education or receive disciplinary referrals. These results are made possible because of continuous bipartisan commitment to invest in our youngest learners, and our governor is our biggest cheerleader for this commitment. Our goal is to provide first-class pre-K to 70% of our 4-year-old children by 2026, so that more children in our state can benefit from this program. To support us with continuous improvement, our state now gathers data through the Alabama Kindergarten Inventory of Developing Skills, also known as ALAKIDS. This informs us about where children are developmentally when they enter the K-12 school system. The development of ALAKIDS is a collaboration and partnership among the Department of Early Childhood, the Department of Education, and the Department of Human Resources. We work together to create a tool to help identify students' readiness levels as they enter kindergarten. ALAKIDS actually assesses student skills and abilities across multiple content and developmental areas, including executive functioning, which we all know is very important in the job world. Knowing where our children are when they enter K-12 provides the kindergarten teacher with the necessary information so that they can begin immediately meeting the individual developmental learning needs of each child. Alabama First Class Pre-K program works. In the 2021 ALAKIDS assessment, 71% of the children who attended First Class Pre-K were proficient in 4 or more of the 6 domains of learning. If asked why we should continue investments in early childhood education, everyone should share that early care and education supports our state's workforce in 3 very important ways. Number 1, working parents need high-quality childcare options in order to keep working. Today's pre-K students are tomorrow's workforce. We want them to have the best start possible. And number 3, we provide the valuable training opportunities to our workforce of over 2,000 early learning teachers and staff. To support high quality, it is important that if K-12 teachers and staff are provided a raise, first-class pre-K staff are also included. Teacher salaries are the single largest expenditures of pre-K funds and the most important. Retaining our workforce through pay parity is vital in order for us to protect quality. We have several efforts in our workforce plan that I would like to briefly share. The Department of Early Childhood Education is the sponsor of the Alabama Early Childhood Educator Apprenticeship. The department worked very closely with the Office of Apprenticeship for the successful launch of this program in June of 2022. The apprenticeship program design is modeled after the National Association for the Education of Young Children's Early Childhood Education Unifying Framework and incorporates the most current NAEYC standards and competencies. One of the goals of the apprenticeship program is to ensure that we have qualified educators available to facilitate high-quality early learning environments in early childhood classrooms across all of the mixed delivery systems that provide this service. This can happen when early childhood teachers receive on-the-job learning from a teacher and/or mentor coach combined with related technical instruction through higher education coursework. A second goal of this apprenticeship program is to establish a framework for aligning coursework that will transfer and articulate seamlessly between the institutions of higher learning. We want to make it easy for our educators to continue through our pathways. There is no cost for apprentices to participate, and they can earn progressive wages as they reach pre-identified on-the-job learning and related technical instruction levels within each ECE designation. To offset the cost of the apprenticeship for the employer, all apprentices apply for FAFSA, Teach scholarships, Leadership in Childcare scholarships, and C3 scholarships. This allows them to participate in this without having to pay. Unfortunately, for many individuals who would like to obtain credentials or higher degrees to seek higher paying positions, we know that financial support continues to be an obstacle. The department plans to continue providing annual funding to coordinate and facilitate the offering of teach scholarships to these qualified candidates. Whenever we receive grants or other funds, we provide them opportunities through this teach scholarship. Partnerships and investments in higher education are critical to growing the early childhood workforce. Implementing innovative pathways such as online course availability for non-traditional students and incumbent early educators allows for flexibility in how teachers move through the pipeline to obtain higher degrees and qualifications. At Auburn University, upon admission into their online completer degree program, which we partnered with them on, students are immediately counseled into seeking opportunities to work in the field of early childhood care and education if they are not already doing so. This is a critical component that they're having these opportunities to actually participate as early as possible. The goal is to support expansion and professionalization of the early childhood workforce through an online bachelor's degree program in early childhood development that allows students to apply pedagogy to real-life work experience. The department has also partnered with Troy University to develop courses for both undergraduate and graduate students to obtain a certification in infant early childhood mental health, and to offer scholarships to students seeking this certification. In addition, reflective supervision is also a component of this certification, and this promotes student wellness. We recognized early on the importance of having these supports for our teachers as they're dealing with challenging behaviors and other issues within the classrooms. We cannot build the early childhood workforce without partners. We are establishing a partnership with the Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services to identify citizens who are interested in pursuing careers in early childhood education. Prioritizing early childhood educators is an ongoing commitment. And again, we are grateful to have a plan that is supported by our governor and the legislature. In 2022, the department completed our strategic plan, which will enable us to focus on our true purpose and succeed in moving the department forward. This plan includes our vision, mission, and our 4 strategic priorities, which are organizational health, to promote a collaborative culture that prioritizes engagement and develops leaders around their professional goals. Family engagement is a critical component and priority for the department. We recognize that parents are their children's first teachers, and we want to empower families to support and advocate for their children's early care and education needs. Our 3rd priority is high quality programs and services. We want to continue to build upon what we've started with the department, but recognize that there is always room and a desire to improve. Workforce development. We will build a workforce that is well respected and ready to meet the demand for high quality early care and education programs and services. Partnerships. We're constantly seeking partnerships. In fact, we're ready to email Upsmith as well as Nick Moore at the GOAT office to learn more about the things we've learned about this morning to continue to strengthen the work that we're doing around workforce development. Our strategic plan calls for a high-quality workforce with clearly identified pathways, and this is the key to our success. Again, we're constantly seeking innovative strategies for our workforce to ensure that we maintain a leader in our state and our nation for high-quality early childhood care and education. We are thankful for this opportunity to share with you this morning, and if you have any questions or need more information, we'd love to continue the conversation offline. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Cooper, excuse me, we appreciate your time today. You know, I have to admit, I've learned something in your presentation as well. And we focus so much on the now, but part of our process has to be to make sure we never get in the position that we're in today. And so programs like yours is going to shore that up. And I appreciate it. And I also appreciate you connecting the dots with our existing workforce. Probably one of the main things people call in for is unreliable daycare, right? And you having that for them, and then what it brings to the table for the children that are in it. I think that's great. That's great. So thank you so much, Dr. Cooper, for you and your team's work.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I think that concludes today's webinar. We have the next one is on Monday, February the 13th. It's going to start at 9 a.m. and I hope